As you know, we are in the midst of the greatest wealth transfer in history. And if we play our cards right, we are positioned to control the majority of wealth in this country and in the world through this transfer that's happening right now. I always talk about this as something that's sort of coming, that I'm excited about. Great news. It's here. We're 15 to 20% of the way through. And sort of top line, what's spurring this is longevity. We live longer than our male counterparts. So number one, we have a lot of inheritors. That's the first wave of the wealth transfer, women inheriting assets and funds after their spouses pass away. And then second, we're seeing a shift in women's decision-making when it comes to finance. So a couple of just grounding points here in the numbers. There are a few different stats floating around. I'm using Cerulli Associates, a market leader. I've also mixed in data from McKinsey here. And I'm working with the average number of 100 trillion. Cerulli states that it's 124 trillion that will be transferred by 2048. Some people say 2050. And part of that is going to go to charitable causes. Part of that's going to go to taxes. So we're going to use the rounded out number of 100 trillion for today's conversation. And with that, women should control 70 trillion of that. Exciting times. Before we dig in further, I'm curious to hear from all of you why you might care about the wealth transfer and what wealth means to you. Why do we care about more wealth being in the hands of more women? Any takers? Yes?
More aligned investing with forward-thinking social values.
More aligned investing with forward-thinking social values? Yep. Different risk tolerance? Yes, embedded fiduciaries of capital. Thank you. Yeah, so at the basic level, I'm highly motivated about this because I care about equality. I care about women having freedom, agency, and choice to live life on their own terms and make decisions that work for them. And what's clear to me is that, we want more women in all the places that decisions are being made, in boardrooms, in political spaces, in the C-suite. But until women have the same economic power as our male counterparts, we're always going to be at the mercy of somebody else's decision-making. So let's take a quick look at the timeline. We're 15 to 20% of the way through. The top line, the light line, is the 100 trillion that's getting transferred. The thick green line is us right there. And you can see in the middle of the chart, in the early 2030s, we'll be 50% of the way through the transfer. So the time is not one day, someday. The time is now. Why does this matter? Even with the majority, $70 trillion going into the hands of women, we could still hold less than a third of the world's wealth by 2048 if we do not get off the sidelines, do not engage our female principals, mothers, sisters, daughters, aunts, even sort of the women we do life with, right, in our immediate communities. The dollars are moving, but existing systems compound advantage and systems compound disadvantage too. So if women aren't owning equity, writing checks, deploying capital, and shaping the system, we're inheriting the old rules, not rewriting them. Okay. This is not our fault. We've also been conditioned this way. Right, think about who here is a mom. I'm a mom. I love it. Any moms with daughters? Okay, great. I see it in myself, and I definitely see it now raising a girl, that we, from an early age, are taught to give. You are nothing if you are not generous of your time, of yourself, of your assets, of your money. So no wonder, and rightfully so, we still want a lot of women and people in general in philanthropy, but no wonder we sort of lean towards philanthropy and away from investing. We're taught to spend. Oh, the media loves women, don't they? They love to make us feel bad about ourselves so we can buy more things to feel good about ourselves. We influence 85% of all consumer purchases, either directly or indirectly. So here we are powering the economy, but we have almost no ownership of the economy, right? There are only 10% of us are institutional capital allocators. And then we're taught to save. Don't buy the latte. Save for a rainy day. Play it safe. You need to be safe and measured and protected. I cannot tell you I talk to hundreds of women about their money, and I love it, obviously, it animates me. But the number of women I talk to, and the previous version of myself included, by the way, who have the bulk of their liquids sitting in a low-yield savings account, by definition, we're losing money. Low-yield savings isn't even beating inflation, right? So here we are. Why am I showing you a picture of a white dude named Ben when we're clearly here to talk about this exciting moment in history for women? Well, no disrespect to Ben Affleck, but to talk about the future of women and wealth, we also have to start with where the chips are stacked. At outdated tables historically designed for men and their money. So fun story, a long time ago, I won't date myself, but this is Baby Heidi over here. I was doing a professional and personal development course. And on one of the sessions, we had this homework, and the facilitator said, your homework is to go out into the world and start your interactions from an unfamiliar place. What would life look like if you engaged hard, like really leaned in from a place of, I don't know? I was like, oh, that's gonna be uncomfortable, right? So a few days later, I found myself at this charity celebrity poker tournament fundraiser thing. And my friend said to me, hey, I have an extra ticket. Do you wanna come? I said, sure, I'll come, but I'm gonna hang out at the bar while you play because I don't know how to play poker. And then I heard myself say it and I was like, oh no, my literal homework is to engage in I don't know. So I was like, all right, well, worst case scenario, this is gonna be like a funny story to take back to my group. So we go into the tournament, I sit down at the table, not with my friend, we get split up, and the dealer deals and then starts going around the table and he gets to me and I say, oh, I'm just gonna watch this first round. And he was like, yeah, no. So this kind ally, this man across the table looked at the man next to me and said, hey, like swap me out, I'll help her. So he comes, turns out I'm a pretty quick study, and I end up beating the table. So then I go on to the next table, and I end up beating a professional poker player. You guys can look this man up, Andy Black. I took Andy Black out. And people then were watching, and they were like, this woman is a shark. She said she didn't know. And then I went to the final table with Ben Affleck, and he ended up taking me out. He beat me. But what I learned was not so much about poker, although you should play poker, and there's some great kind of science about how the things that make you good at poker also make you a good investor. But what I saw for myself is that being successful at something is not about knowing everything, right? Has anybody in the room ever tried to lose 5 pounds? I have, so many times. And guess what? I know how to do it. Every time I've known how to do it. But knowing isn't the thing that makes the difference, right? So acting on the spark is greater than knowing everything about the thing. It's actually a scientific term. It's called activation energy. And it's fleeting. So you've got a few seconds to act on it. And once it goes, so does the opportunity, the experience, the learnings, the compound interest, everything that could have gone into it goes out the door if you don't act on it. It's also the thing that I see in literally every research report about women and financial literacy and women in investing. Okay, so again, I don't think this is on us. People put it on us like it's our fault. Not our fault. We've been socialized this way. For women, I don't know isn't the norm. We actually let that take ourselves out of the game before we even start. And it shows up in these really sneaky, kind of internalized ways. So this is not a scientific study. This is a survey. I want to be clear. But 10 years ago, a facilitator was doing a training, and the person conducting the training asked a room of about 50 women and then a room of about 50 men, how many of you are experts in breastfeeding? Well, I don't know about you guys, but for me, I thought about that when I read it, and I was like, hey, I did it. Had a hard time getting my baby to latch. I had a goal of doing it for a year, but I had a, delivery gone sideways. I could barely do it for 7 weeks. Definitely no expert over here. And guess what? Nobody in that room raised their hand. But then you ask the men, and we had a lot of experts. Why? Because for a woman, you got all the self-talk about how you weren't perfect. And for a man, he's like, I saw my wife did it, I got this. Now, this shows up in finance. As well, this is not it's sort of funny, right? Because we get the irony. But this is, on a macro level, a real issue, I think, of economic security. So shout out to Jana Arts in the room, who actually put this study on my radar. And this is a scientific sound study. The Global Financial Literacy Excellence Center put out the Fearless Woman Study in 2021. Researchers released 2 versions of the same multiple choice test. In version 1, they included an option for I don't know. Women got only 29% of the answers correct, because they mostly defaulted to I don't know. In version 2, they eliminated I don't know as an option, and guess what? We got more than double of the answers right. So this isn't about competency or capability. This is very much about confidence. And the ramifications are that we have 84% of women saying we don't feel comfortable managing an inheritance or financial windfall. And we have 66% of Gen Z and millennial women saying that they've delayed actively managing their wealth because they don't feel confident doing so. And again, compounds advantage, compounds disadvantage. Not actively managing your wealth doesn't mean you stay the same. It actually means we're losing. So here's what I think is exciting about this moment. Obviously, the great wealth transfer. But it's happening at this unique moment in time where if you see this very bright green, kind of thin line at the top, this is how AI is predicted to accelerate over the next 20 years. Alongside where we have sort of women's wealth growth, and where we have sort of the growth of more women allocators. And what I think is unique and exciting about this time is that for our entire lives, for everybody in this room, knowing has always been the edge. Knowing has been our competitive advantage. The knower takes all. But we're moving into a time where that's not going to be the edge anymore, right? A machine's going to know everything. So the things that are actually going to be advantageous over the next 20 years are discernment, integration, cross-collaboration. The things that we as women are hardwired for. This is what we do innately. We've always done it. Even when the systems didn't let us in, we worked around the system and built mutual aid societies with each other to take care of ourselves, our families, and our communities. So a quick look at sort of how we got here. The first industrial revolution, the operating principle there is muscle, right? Making stuff. The second industrial revolution, the operating principle there is scale. We're going from manufacturing and making to mass electrification, telegraphs, communication at scale. And by the way, we still couldn't vote, okay? And then we move into the knowledge economy. In the 1970s, the digital revolution takes off. And while NASDAQ is laying the foundation for the future of digital trading, we're just trying to not get fired at work for being pregnant. So then in 1974 or 1978, we have the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. Great news. We can come to work pregnant now legally. And then in 1974, for the first time, we're allowed to have a mortgage without a brother, a father, or another male, whomever, co-signing for us. And yay for us, we get credit cards so we can go spend more. Woo! Meanwhile, our counterparts are building systems that enable them to invest and disrupt and do the things that we were sort of socialized not to do. And then everybody sort of knows how the last 20 years have gone. But now we're going into this emergent new time that, could feel a little bit intimidating, but also really exciting. And some people are calling it the age of purpose. So how do we harness this? Does anybody know the root word of wealth? Where did wealth come from? Okay, this is fascinating. This was new information to me too. The root word of wealth comes from an Old English root word, wella. And wella means well-being and prosperity. Wella is communal. It's about the integration of your whole self, your mental, your physical, your financial, your spiritual well-being. It wasn't until the second industrial revolution where it became more focused on just money. And of course, then markets benefit from that, right? If there's a scarcity, there's a demand. I think of this moment in time less of trying to cram more knowledge that women don't know into more women so we can get more women off the sidelines and engaged, and more of an invitation into a homecoming. This is who we've always been. We're not new to this. Integration is innate to us, and this combination of well-being, capital, and community is how we've always done life. So we have this foundational moment that's sort of designed uniquely for us to win. And by the way, we cannot talk about women's wealth without talking about women's health, for a number of reasons. But first and foremost, again, because we're outliving our male counterparts. Second, we're living longer. It's predicted that women might spend 30 plus years in retirement. We need our money to go further for us. And we have to include this as part of our financial strategies. And you see leading ultra affluent women deploying on this approach already. Francine Lafrac, through her foundation, relaunched a center within Barnard College, the Center for Wellbeing, where she's connecting financial, mental, physical health for young women as a framework, as part of their holistic well-being. We heard so many of you talk about this yesterday, particularly during the impact investing panel. We think about the world differently. We approach life differently, and we think about finance differently. Women are 2 times more likely than men to invest with impact at the center, not as a sidecar. I think Carrie said yesterday in her closing remarks, the sort of tenor of it was, you have a dream for a world where impact investing becomes obsolete, because it's not a thing you do. It's embedded and blended into the entire strategy. If you listen to global wealth managers talk about this, women who have worked with the leading billionaires in the world, they say the same thing. In 10, 20 years from now, this is not a sleeve of the portfolio. This is blended throughout the portfolio. We heard Rebecca talk about really smart strategies where you have mixed capital and you're leveraging philanthropic dollars, field building investments, market rate investments to create a cyclical and virtuous cycle and actually move the needle on issues that we care about. 70% of female investors say they want their investments to align with their values. So capital right now in this moment becomes a tool for regeneration, for wellness, for shared prosperity, and by the way, while not compromising on financial returns. This is who we are. This is who we get to pull into the conversation and who we get to build the future with. So at New Theory, we think about who the key players are of this wealth transfer in these 6 different archetypes. 1, inheritors. These are the widows, the daughters, the spouses, the beneficiaries of this first major wave of wealth. They're receiving and rewriting stewardship rules. You see it in sports too. Okay, I'm going to be honest. I'm not really a sports person. However, I've really gotten into the Detroit Lions because, and I get it, all of America is a Detroit Lions fan now too, but I got in a little earlier because you saw Sheila Hamp Ford take over that dynasty and totally rewrite the playbook. And guess what? It's working. No kidding. You're seeing women sort of take these new different models and implement them in every sector across industry. Allocators. I mean, I don't have to tell you guys. We're sitting in the most powerful room. But you all are moving capital with intention, from institutional checks to, family office leads, LPs to angels. You're the people deploying funds at scale. And we need more of us to come into this fold. Creators, women like my boss, my CEO, my founder, these are women who are building, scaling, exiting companies. And guess what? They usually reinvest their capital back into the communities who supported them. And or if those communities weren't big enough to support them yet, they build new tables so those communities can play. Acquirers. These are women who are acquiring wealth and assets through a marital change. Very underspoken about, but you see incredible examples. Just look at Mackenzie Scott, and that's sort of an outsized example, but you see how women are changing where money is flowing. Allies. I know I talk so much about how much I love women. I do. I love men too, so much so that I married one of them. And like many of you, I've had a lot of positive experiences with male colleagues and mentors, et cetera, through my career. Look, this group can be like a little less predictable. However, male partners, investors, spouses, and founders who understand that this isn't just a women's initiative, this is an economic imperative, can be some of our greatest partners in scaling wealth for women. And pollinators. This is sort of who makes up the fabric and the foundation of what's pulling more women investors, more women allocators into the mix, and seeding the foundation for the next generation of allocators, inheritors, creators, acquirers. So what do we do in this moment to make sure that it's catalytic? A lot, but we boiled it down into 4 things. So 1, confidence, closing the confidence gap. 2, care, well-being has to be part of the wealth strategy. Connection, integration is our superpower, and the collective, we've got to move together. This is our force multiplier. Moves that change the game, confidence. Number 1, we've talked a lot about this today. I'm sure you guys talk a lot about this all day, every day too. But spot the spark. Embrace the activation energy and remind yourself it disappears in 5 seconds. It's like, I'm going to act on it now or I'm not going to act on it. Normalizing, I don't know. And to be clear, I'm not talking about walking around saying, I don't know. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when you hear it in your head, lean into it. What if we start there? What if we engage from that place? Go find the answer. Go figure it out. We're great at that. Shift identity. Again, we've sort of been conditioned to believe that our value add is as a spender. Most, I don't want to say most, but like a lot of the population out there who are women are accredited investors, right? The SEC rules are like pretty broad. You're somebody who's making $200,000 a year as a W-2 employee. You're somebody who's passed the Series 765 or 82, maybe 63, I'm not sure. Or you're somebody whose net worth is greater than $1 million, not including your primary residence. I talk to accredited female investors all the time that do not think of themselves as investors. So like shifting that identity in our communities so women see ourselves as sort of a full version of the power that we wield. Number 2, care. Has to be part of the strategy. The wealth span is the health span. The health span is the wealth span. And we've got to be sort of deploying capital, building strategies, and creating frameworks for young people that talk holistically about well-being and don't make women feel like we're being greedy if we're talking about money. It's just part of well-being. Care for ourselves and our economy. This is a $648 billion opportunity and growing. Andrea said it yesterday or 2 days ago. It's wild that these things, first line, directly affect women who make up 51% of the population. And a lot of the world is talking about sort of like care as an ancillary investment. No, it's a huge investment opportunity and it's totally going to change the way that we do and experience life. And regenerative design. So designing value-aligned portfolios that generate strong returns for us, but also create systems that aren't just extracting, but are regenerating as well. Number 3, connection. So connecting capital and cause, we've talked a lot about this. Integration and connecting across assets. Some of the things that we've been speaking about over the past 2 days, right? If you're trying to solve for ocean health, you can't only do that in venture capital. You can't only do that in private equity. If we're talking about the energy transition, what are all the different asset classes that we're leaning into? The collective. This one, to me, is the most important and the most profound. I think for all of us, whether we're inheritors in this room, we're creators, we're allocators, we lead family offices, right? It's a little bit of a isolating job. Your success is tied to your ability to be discreet. But we find power in the collective, and we can move faster and at scale together. So in obviously responsible ways, I think we still are professionals and need to be discreet, but create spaces like Kayo that are virtual, that are physical. Our group's starting a WhatsApp group. Stay connected, share information. Share frameworks with each other. Take the numbers out, but share the framework. And as my good friend Elizabeth says, write the darn check. There's a great story of a couple of women who are part of one of my core collectives. One of them ran a huge fund in the hundreds of billions and wanted to do a program that would enable smaller checks to be written to emerging managers, but she couldn't do it at her current location. And so she went to another firm and said, I have this idea that I really want to get off the ground. And of course, and I'm going to help you seed it, et cetera. And so of course the firm was like, yes, let's do it. And she said, but I'm only going to do it if you put this woman in charge. And so I think for us in the room, sometimes we're fish in water, right? So you forget about all of the power that we have. But whether it's writing a check, whether it's upskilling a woman, whether it's helping a woman transform her own identity about herself as an investor, whether it's bringing another woman into an allocator seat, there is so much power that we have, and we'll do it faster, stronger, and better if we can do it together. So we're in this new era of women, health, and wealth. And we're not just playing our cards. We're rewriting the rule book, we're building new tables, and we're doing it at scale. And it's only going to happen for us if we can lean in, take action, and bring more women into the fold. So I'm so inspired by each and every one of you. You do it on a daily basis. I hope this gives you a little more fuel to do it more, and to supercharge the work that you're already doing. And if anybody wants to be a part of how we're thinking about this and how we're building this at New Theory, would love for you to join us and connect.